everyone, it's Nicole for Lawn Fawn's Fawny Holiday Week here on the Lawn Fawn blog. And today I have a card that it features a shaker as well as watercolor stamped images. I am using this adorable little owl from the Lawn Fawn Winter Owl stamp set. And you can see I had a couple of tries before this one, and this is the one that I actually ended up using, so I left this one in for the video. But I am using distress markers to color in my image, and I'm not coloring in the entire image with them, but rather laying down just a little bit of color. I used the pumice stone distress marker for the body of the owl, and then I'm using the Tim Holtz watercolor fine tip brush and applying a little bit of water to spread out that distress ink for a really fun watercolored look. Now, with the watercoloring, it is definitely going to be more imperfect than if you use something like Copic markers or even colored pencils. So you kind of have to go with that and know that when you're using distress markers and a watercoloring technique. And I really kind of like it. It turned out really cute, I think, for this card. I did add a little tattered rose to the body of the owl and kind of the bottom part of the eyes, as funny as that sounds. It doesn't add a lot, but it adds just a touch of color. I am stamping these really cute birch trees, which are one of my favorite Lawn Fawn images. This is from the Joy to the Woods stamp set, as well as this ornament. And I'm using a VersaFine permanent black ink to stamp those. And then again, taking distress markers and this fine tip water brush to kind of smooth out my color. So I use some Festive Berries the Festive Berries distress marker for the ornament. And I'm using the pumice stone marker again for the birch trees. This is one of my favorite colors of distress ink. It works so well for so many different things, and you can see I really kind of messy applied my marker to these trees, and then I'm spreading out that color and moving it across the tree. And I don't have to be terribly particular on this. Much like for the owl, it's going to be on the forefront of the card, I guess is what I want to say. So I was kind of careful where the color went, as careful as you can be with watercolor. But for the trees, I'm really kind of doing a really quick coloring, spreading that color around. And I'll show you why as I work on my card. Now that I have all of these colored, I can grab the coordinating dies, and I'm going to lay those right over my colored images, hold them down with a little Post-it tape, and then run them through the Big Shot die cutting machine to cut all of these out. And I'm going to have to do it a couple times. I like to get as many as I can with the first pass of the machine. So I actually did all these trees and the ornament plus the owl, and they're all going to fit there on my platform, and I can run those all through at once. Then all I have to do is die cut those other two tree images again. The one set of trees that has the two trees together is one die, so you can get both of those cut with just that one die, which is awesome. Line up those last two trees, run those through my machine. I'm going to set all of this aside for a second because I need to die cut a few more pieces to make my shaker card. I'm going to use both the large and the second largest dies from the Lawn Fawn Large Stitched Rectangles die collection, and I laid them over some Simon Says Stamp fog cardstock to create my frame or the window for my shaker card. I didn't have to use any Post-it tape because I'm using the magnetic platform for my die cut machine, and it holds those dies in place perfectly. Now I also die cut a piece of vellum using that largest stitched rectangle and a piece of acetate. So I have a lot of layers here. I'm not die cutting a backing for my shaker card because I'm going to use my actual card base for the backing, so I don't have yet another layer. And then I'm kind of playing with my trees and these layers here to see what I like before I adhere anything down. So I've laid out my trees, and then it will be the vellum, the acetate window, and then my frame. The owl is going to sit on top of that acetate frame, so it won't actually be in the shaker. Now this little branch is from the Winter Sparrows stamp set, and I'm stamping that on a scrap of paper, and the first color I used I didn't really like. So I grabbed a different marker. This is the Gathered Twigs, and I stamped that again, and I'm just going to smooth out the color with my water brush, grab that coordinating die, place that right over the branch, and then I'll die cut that as well for my card. Now, I die cut this is a die cut white rectangle from some white cardstock. And although this isn't the backing for my card, I need some snowdrifts for the base of my card. My trees are not as tall as the window of my card, and I don't want you to see any space above or below. So the stitched hillside borders make the perfect snowy borders along that bottom edge so that it looks like the trees, or gives the illusion that those trees are actually taller than they are. Plus, it gives me a fun way to really add depth and dimension by tucking certain ones back behind one of the snowdrifts and then placing a few of them in front of that and placing another snowdrift over that. It really allows you to build a fun stitched scene. Now, one of the reasons I didn't have to be terribly particular with my watercoloring of the birch trees is that vellum is going to lay over those trees. So the coloring, you'll miss a lot of those imperfections, I guess is what I want to say. Now, for my vellum layer, I wanted to create some falling snow. So I took a powder tool over that, and I'm going to take this cute little miniature snowy border that has little snowballs and stars from the Let It Snow Lawn Fawn stamp set. And I'll stamp that with Versamark ink over about the top 2/3 of the card, down to about where the snowdrifts will start in the background. So I'm just stamping it back and forth. No real rhyme or reason. I just don't want it to be real uniform, so you can see that I sometimes stamp 2 of those borders, or as much as I can of 2 of those borders. And sometimes I'll start in the middle and then stamp a little on either side. That's just so that it isn't quite so uniform. Now, once I have all of the snowy background stamped, I'm going to take some white embossing powder and sprinkle that on. And I'll heat set that to create a really fun snowy border. And this was maybe one of my favorite parts of this whole shaker card because it turned out exactly the way I wanted it to. And I think it really translates nicely over those birch trees. I can go ahead and start adhering some of my pieces now. So I'm adding adhesive to my trees first. You can see I'm adhering some of them behind that back snowdrift, some of them in front of that one, and then behind the one that'll be in the front. And I'll take that back snowdrift and kind of reposition it and adhere that top one as well to build that background. I'm going to take some adhesive around all 4 sides now of this back panel, which actually is the top of my card. This is my card base that I adhered all of this to. And I could add adhesive all around all 4 sides because it won't show because there's a great frame. So it's coming together, which this was one of those cards that was kind of a trial and error for me. I didn't visualize it as I was seeing it, so as I built this card, I got kind of excited because it was really turning out so cute. Now I'm adhering the branch and the owl to the front window of my card. So it's going to be on top of the of the shaker. So you can see I had to redo the front panel. I originally thought that I could stamp my greeting and the little hanger for the ornament with some white StazOn on the acetate, which would have been great, except that the white really got lost with all the white in the background of the card. I was so disappointed that that didn't work out. So I had to redo my front panel because I'd already stamped on it, and with StazOn there was no way to get it off. And instead, I tried several things. You can see some of my trials lying about on the sides of my project here. I decided, and I'm reusing all my foam adhesive and everything, I decided to go ahead and kind of pull it apart and stamp my greeting in that bottom left corner-ish of my card using Versamark on the vellum and then heat embossing it with silver embossing powder. So I'm glad I didn't, this is kind of one of those things where I was glad I didn't give up on the project. I was getting kind of frustrated trying to find a good way to add my greeting or something that I thought looked good. Now once I have that, I can add all my sequins inside. I'm using an assortment of Pretty Pink Posh sequins and confetti and silver and sparkling clear and marshmallow. Like I said, the hanger for the ornament really couldn't be seen stamped in white. I probably could have stamped it in black StazOn because that's the only other color of StazOn that I happen to have right now. But I thought the black would just be too harsh for this card. So instead, I'm wrapping a little bit of silver twine from May Arts around my branch and punched a little hole in the top of my ornament to hang, quote unquote, it from the branch. And I like how this turned out much, much better. I used a little glossy accents to kind of hold that in place. And once that was dry, I just snipped off the end. And I like that because you can actually see it hanging now from the branch and it doesn't get lost into the background of the card. So a couple final things that I did to finish my card, finishing details I guess I should say, is I took the Wink of Stella clear glitter brush marker and added a thin coat of sparkle there on the scarf as well as the ornament. And then I took my glossy accents and I am going to add glossy accents to both the eyes and the little beak or nose of the owl. And I stamped the heart from Joy to the Woods with the Festive Berries ink and watercolored it a little bit and die cut it with the coordinating die and attached it to the little owl as well. It kind of pulls in the red from the ornament up to the owl, I think, and adds just a nice little touch of color. It's not a huge die cut or anything like that, but the pop of color, I think, is a nice addition to the owl. And I'm going to adhere that with just a bling glue dot because it's such a teeny tiny die. And there's some dog hair on my sweatshirt. I apologize. There's that glossy accents that I'm going to add to the owl's eyes and beak. I hope you've enjoyed this Fawny holiday card showcasing watercolored stamped images as well as a fun shaker card background. Thanks for watching!